Ever since Shadowloo's fall, Chun-Li has gained a more philosophical perspective, and she lives life in a calm but radiant manner. For this episode, we will be going over the history of the First Lady of fighting games, Chun-Li. So, let's get into it. Pre-Street Fighter. At the young age of 5, Chun-Li witnessed her first Peking opera and Bruce Lee film, two things that attracted her and contributed to her decision to take up martial arts. Not long after, she started by studying Tai Chi, and the beautiful motions she recalled from the Peking opera, however, were very different from Tai Chi. Her father began teaching her Hongchuan and other fundamental exercises shortly after that. As a result, Chun-Li's proficiency in Chinese martial arts grew quickly. Chun-Li fought primarily with kicks. She got this trait from her father, who was likewise credited as possessing legendary legs. As Chun-Li continued to refine her kicks, she incorporated moves from many combat disciplines, including Chinese martial arts, capoeira, battle karate, and taekwondo, ultimately developing her own style. At the age of 18, Chun-Li decided to pursue a career as a detective in the pursuit of her father, who had vanished. She eventually followed in her father's footsteps and worked as Interpol's anti-Shadowloo investigator, first starting out as a drugs investigator for the ICPO, International Criminal Police Organization. Chun-Li was referred to be the black sheep of the ICPO, since she was looking into Shadowloo for selling weapons and drugs illegally when the villainous organization gained control of Interpol's top brass. Street Fighter. A few years later, now an Interpol detective investigating her father's recent kidnapping is in pursuit of a Shadowloo member in China known as Vega. Chun-Li is attempting to apprehend Vega. Vega claims that someone who performed the same technique is what her kicks remind her of. A brawl breaks out as Chun-Li, realizing that Guy is her father, questions Vega about him. He snags her arm with his claw, causing Vega to back away. Chun-Li pursues a clue that Vega was seen in the region as she carries out her quest in Russia. When Chun-Li first meets Guile and Nash, they quickly pick up on her desperation. Chun-Li maintains that she has grounds to go alone even if the two advise her to exercise more patience. They spar because Nash wants to check if she's ready. She is surprised when Nash gets up after the battle. Guile informs Chun-Li that if she's finding Vega, that he and Nash should come with her. When they get back to China, they find Vega with Birdie and a group of Shadowloo warriors. Chun-Li engages Vega once more while Guile and Nash repel the assailants. After she eventually overcomes Vega and attempts to detain him for interrogation, he flees in a helicopter and makes a promise to see her again, but not before disclosing that he has knowledge of her father's passing. She is reminded to never go alone and expresses her gratitude to Guile and Nash for attending. Street Fighter Alpha 2. Continuing the investigation of her father's kidnapping, decides to speak with a potential source of information. Jan, an old instructor of hers and a close family friend, and she gets into a nice disagreement, and he gives her a tip about the identity of the probable assassins, the mysterious criminal group Shadowloo. She finds the group's commander, M. Bison, and demands an explanation of what happened to her father. After a brief battle, M. Bison was amazed by Chun-Li's strength, beauty, and anger, so invites her to join Shadowloo, which Chun-Li promptly refuses. Unexpectedly, Bison strikes her in the stomach with his Psycho Punisher, instantly defeating her. He then laughs at her and threatens to kill her if she attacks him again, much like he did to her father. Chun-Li then gets up to her feet and looks as M. Bison's escaped to his plane. Chun-Li is subsequently designated as Shadowloo's special investigator at the Interpol China branch headquarters. Chun-Li worked with Charlie Nash, a member of the United States Air Force, to track down Shadowloo and take Bison down. Street Fighter Alpha 3. 2 years passed and Chun-Li came across someone who was totally unanticipated looking for Shadowloo and Charlie. It was Guile, Charlie's close buddy and fellow lieutenant. After warning Guile not to go in over his head and to leave the two alone, Chun-Li discovers he has been given instructions to bring Charlie back. Guile arrives as she attempts to physically restrain Charlie, reassuring her that she is powerless to compel him to act contrary to his better judgment and good intentions. Guile says that he will never abandon friends in need after she continues to demand to be left alone with her boyfriend. Chun-Li discovered that Bison had tricked the Air Force into abandoning the planned attack of the main Shadaloo base and ran up to the two troops to notify them that they had been duped and would have to destroy the base on their own. Chun-Li went outside to place bombs around the base alongside Guile as they infiltrated the Shadaloo stronghold in Thailand to destroy the Psycho Drive. Guile sprinted out and grabbed Chun-Li, telling her that he had found Charlie's tags, and he may already be dead, so they both escaped. Bison and Ryu were at odds at the same time. Chun-Li saw Cammy and some small children who were escaping with a group of people along the route. After helping Ryu, Chun-Li joined him and escaped. Chun-Li was successful in putting an end to the Shadaloo Evil Empire's operations despite being disappointed by the initial lack of evidence of Shadaloo's wrongdoings. Street Fighter II. A few years later, Chun-Li was invited to the Second World Warrior competition and learned that Bison had reportedly survived the demolition of the Thailand facility. She clearly intended to stop Shadaloo and exact further retribution on her father's killers. During the tournament, she loses, but it doesn't state to who. Seeing the defeat of Bison and Shadaloo, she pays respect at her father's grave and goes back to her life until her duties call her into action again. Pre-Street Fighter IV. Sometime later, she admits to herself that her hopes for her life have not come true. Chun-Li realizes that her inner power has been restored as she finds herself back in action and is likely to keep looking for the SIN organization as well as Bison and Shadaloo's movement. Chun-Li, Guile, and Cammy are dispatched to a theme park after Shadaloo is defeated to stop Yuri, who is wreaking havoc there. Chun-Li goes in search of other survivors while Guile and Cammy rescue imprisoned people. Chun-Li shows up just as Yuri is about to murder a rogue SIN agent. Chun-Li fights Yuri, but she is unable to truly harm her. Yuri grabs Chun-Li's arm and locks her in an arm lock while Chun-Li retreats by kicking his leg and throwing an air kickakin. Yuri defends with one hand. Chun-Li's distraction by a little child whose mother was injured in Yuri's attack serves Yuri's interests. Chun-Li is knocked down on the ground as Yuri comes in and kicks her in the solar plexus. When Guile and Cammy come, she is forced to flee, stopping Yuri from killing her because her fall sight has failed. When injured and unconscious, Chun-Li recounts the tiny child and his mother to Cammy. In a hospital, Chun-Li is receiving treatment for several wounds all over her body. Chun-Li will resume researching Yuri and her connections to SIN from her hospital bed once she has recovered, though. Guile and Cammy move to face Yuri while Chun-Li monitors the SIN headquarters and the latter's movements. Guile then tells Chun-Li that they were unable to apprehend Yuri. Super Street Fighter IV. Returning to Interpol, she collaborates with Guile and Cammy to take down SIN and discovers the truth about Bison's fate. She participates in the most recent international fighting tournament after recovering from Yuri Han's triumph in an effort to finally defeat SIN. Abel approaches her as she travels, asking for whatever information he can get on the Shadaloo group. She also chases Jen, a competitor in the competition, for further details regarding the passing of her father, but Jen refuses and she is unable to make him comply. Abel approaches her as she travels, asking for whatever information he can get on the Shadaloo group. She also chases Jen, a competitor in the competition, for further details regarding the passing of her father, but Jen refuses and she is unable to make him comply. As Viper was impeding her research, she confronted her and almost blew her secret. Later, she runs across Yuri again, this time attempting to arrest her. Despite defeating Yuri, she is unable to do so. She infiltrated the SIN dam facility, but when Vega started the base's self-destruct mechanism, she became imprisoned. Jen shields her from the subsequent fall, and Guile and Abel ultimately save her. Street Fighter V. A shadow falls. A few years later, Chun-Li joins Guile in his investigation into the New York blackout caused by M. Bison's activation of the Black Moons. When she and Guile encounter M. Bison and the other Heavenly Kings, she fights Bison rashly because of her grudge. Chun-Li is beaten by a supercharged M. Bison, who sends Chun-Li onto the street with a devastating Psycho Blast courtesy to the Black Moons. M. Bison prepares for the fatal blow while Guile struggles to fend off Vega, but Cammy arrives just in time to save her. Cammy and Guile assist a wounded Chun-Li in his retreat. Later that night, Cammy, Chun-Li, and Guile debate the probable connections between the missing hackers and the Shadaloo Keys. Chun-Li is still recovering after her bout with M. Bison. She collapses back to her knees, gripping her belly, as she struggles to rise to her feet. Cammy brings Chun-Li a box containing one of the components. However, the appearance of Charlie Nash surprises all three. Guile leaves Chun-Li and Cammy alone with Rashid and Azam while he confronts him. Rashid draws Chun-Li's attention as he speaks before assuming an attacking position. Rashid competes with Chun-Li for her piece. Rashid defeats her as she is still hurt and exhausted from her earlier encounter with Bison. The key in the shape of a star flies off her as she is kicked away. Rashid retreats with Chun-Li's piece before she could get to her feet. Karen Kanzuki enlists Chun-Li, who discovers that the pieces are the keys to the Black Moons and to halting Shadaloo's scheme. She joins forces with Ken Masters and Cammy to track out Laura in Brazil. Chun-Li identifies Sean as a member of the Matsuda family and confronts him about the piece he got and delivered to Laura after Ken defeats Fang Decapre, remains near them and falls unconscious. After Ken spars with Laura and wins the piece, the cops arrive to arrest Decapre. Ken and Chun-Li attempt to defuse the situation, but Cammy fights the cops in order to rescue Decapre and flees on her motorbike with Yuri, marking herself and Decapre as fugitives. Yuri is riding away with Cammy and the unconscious Decapre. Ken and Laura hold off an oncoming wave of Shadaloo soldiers as Chun-Li rushes off to the Shadaloo base. Chun-Li is attacked by Shadaloo forces during their initial incursion into Shadaloo, but Dalsum teleports in and knocks them all out. As Chun-Li rushes inside the base, Dalsum hands her a Black Moon piece, leaving Dalsum to deal with a second wave of troops with a Yoga Flame. Chun-Li discovers Li Fun, one of the abducted hackers, while inside. Chun-Li begs the small girl to accompany her in her escape, but Li Fun is hesitant to join her since she still has a task to complete. Chun-Li and Karen meet at the control panel after both women bust down a steel door to get there. Fang finally catches up to them, but Karen keeps him at bay long enough for Chun-Li to successfully shut down the Black Moons. Fang flees, but not before promising one more surprise. Abel, who was an inside guy in the Shadaloo group, runs across Karen and Chun-Li. Meanwhile, Fang employs Li Fun to start the descent program, in which the Black Moons would fall from orbit and explode upon contact, inflicting global damage, chaos, and fatalities. The descent program also activated Abel's psycho power, leading him to lose control of his body in a wrath. Chun-Li and Karen flee the base, and Zangief emerges from the skies to halt Abel, knocking him unconscious with a spinning pile driver. Chun-Li, Karen, and the others board the getaway helicopter, including Nash, as they retreat from the Shadaloo base. Nash and Guile seduce Abel when they are reassembling at the Kanzuki estate, with Nash draining all of Abel's Pisco power. As Nash, Rashid, and Azam return to their home base, Chun-Li visits Abel. After Ryu vanquishes Nikali, Chun-Li is overjoyed to see him. He teams up with them to launch one last attack on Shadaloo. When Chun-Li and the other fighters return, they jump out of the chopper and land at the Shadaloo base. There, Karen's troops and Shadaloo soldiers engage in a fierce battle in which every world warrior holds their own. Before realizing that the Shadaloo dolls, who have all been given strength by the Black Moons, are joining the battle, Chun-Li fights off a few guards. Karen gets ahead of Inero. As Chun-Li rushes into the heart of the base with Guile and Ryu. When Guile, Ryu, and Chun-Li successfully halt the descent program, M. Bison is located. Before Chun-Li could go into combat, she sees Li Fun, who is still a prisoner, looking afraid. Nash engages M. Bison in combat first. However, understanding that he was still too strong, Nash makes the ultimate sacrifice by soaking up as much of M. Bison's extra Pisco power as he can, hoping to debilitate the formidable dictator before destroying himself. Guile and Chun-Li are unable to stop Charlie from making his last sacrifice. As Nash ends his life, she prevents Guile from getting closer to the explosion. After everything has settled, M. Bison is still erect and has trodden on Charlie's dog tags. However, Chun-Li and Guile detect that M. Bison's strength has diminished. Not too long afterward, Fang shows in, apparently having escaped Mars's attempt to murder him. Furious, Fang surges at Chun-Li and swings his poisonous hands at her, but she dodges and blocks the blows, eventually pushing him back with a hacky-eye palm strike. Li Fun is the target of Fang's attention, but Chun-Li intervenes to save her with a Tenshin Shushu to Fang before he can murder the little kid. Chun-Li gives a frightened, scared girl a hug and consoles Li Fun for her bravery. Glancing back, Chun-Li observes Fang gradually recuperating. She gives Ryu instructions to look after M. Bison as he battles Fang. Chun-Li effortlessly overcomes Fang as he passes out from his wrath. Li Fun and Guile leave the base with Ryu after he finally beats Bison. Chun-Li pauses, taking a quick peek at M. Bison's headgear. Her face wears a mix of relief and anxiety at the prospect of her father's revenge presumably coming to an end. However, in the process, Chun-Li and Li Fun fall behind and run to catch up, with Chun-Li cradling Li Fun in her arms and dodging falling objects. Ryu launches a Denjin Hadouken to put out the explosion's flames when it begins to catch up, allowing Chun-Li and Li Fun to escape. Chun-Li just makes her out of the Shadaloo stronghold, carrying Li Fun on her back as it collapses and is buried beneath screaming lava. Ryu and Guile are right beside her. Pre-Street Fighter 3. After the defeat of Shadaloo and getting Li Fun settled in with her, Li Fun finds Chun-Li's old gear from when she was a rookie cop. Chun-Li recounts her past events when she was a rookie cop while tying ox horns on Li Fun's hair. Once Chun-Li has finished Li Fun's ox horns, Li Fun wishes to be just as strong as Chun-Li and they start training. Street Fighter 3: Third Strike. A year later, Chun-Li ultimately makes peace and gives up street fighting in order to teach martial arts to orphans while continuing her career as a police officer. Chun-Li sets out to find Li Fun after Urien abducts her for one of his scientific projects. Once she locates him and returns Li Fun, she challenges him. She returns to China and resumes her martial arts instruction there. Pre-Street Fighter 6. After being appointed to the position of director of the ICPO's Special Criminal Intelligence Branch, Chun-Li, a former high-kicking agent, takes care of Li Fun, who was a victim of the Black Moon incident. Now that Shadaloo has been sundered, she teaches Kung Fu and has grown to be a cherished part of the neighborhood. Chun-Li looks for the proof to clear Ken's name after learning that a new terrorist group called Amnesia has started to pursue him and frame him for a crime he did not commit. Ken and Albert Jackson are headed to a motel, and Sugimoto, who is in disguise, follows them. Chun-Li and Sugimoto pick Ken up after a masked group attacks his car, and the two depart with the wounded champion. When Chun-Li inquires about Ken's friend Albert, she responds that they were unable to reach him in time. Chun-Li also asks Ken whether he recalls his car being attacked. She tells him that in order to protect himself, he must stay in their care. When Ken questions Chun-Li about why she is in Nashelle, she responds that she is still employed by Interpol and serves as the director of their Special Criminal Intelligence Branch. They are looking into potential international financial crimes in Nashelle, and Ken is being held as a material witness in this investigation. Ken becomes enraged and yells that he had nothing to do with this after seeing the video that Amnesia sent, but Chun-Li knocks him back and holds a revolver at him, urging him to calm down. She's aware that Ken is being framed and that they're currently looking for a way to prove his innocence. However, because the whole world saw the video, he wouldn't be safe, and so he can't leave. When Chun-Li realizes that his son is present, he is taken aback and asks Ken what happened to Mel. Ken begs her to contact his kid, but she leaves the room and answers the phone, frustrating Ken. After that, she phones Li Fun, who tells her that the video appears to be a deepfake and that any expert could establish it in court with a thorough technical investigation. Li Fun brings up the internet betting associated with the competition, and she continues by saying that there are more oddities outside the video. She then begs Li Fun for one more favor, finding Mel Masters, which irritates her for working so hard, but Chun-Li assures her that she will make it up when she returns. However, she notices Sugimoto knocked out after she hears a sound and notices that Ken escaped through the window. In a conversation with Chun-Li, Li Fun reveals that the more she looks into JP, the more dubious he seems to be. She claims that he frequently switches between corporations and NGOs, never remaining there for long, and that he is involved in infrastructure projects involving multiple nations. She also remarks that he calls himself Jean-Philippe and that his name Johann must be a fictitious one. According to Li Fun, the majority of his projects appear to be legal at first, but as soon as he gets involved, things start to go wrong and spark civil wars and ethnic clashes. Li Fun acknowledges that his hands are dirty, but Chun-Li questions whether he bears direct responsibility. She discloses that she made an effort to learn more, but that doing so is becoming perilous, and that someone attempted to reverse hack Li Fun and erase all information on the businessman on the dark web. Li Fun responds that she could try harder if there was anything for her and requests a new gaming mouse as well as a large, juicy steak when Chun-Li asks her if it's too hard for her. After the two leave the room, Chun-Li asks herself if she would ever be normal, which upsets Li Fun. Street Fighter 6. Chun-Li leaves Interpol on vacation with Li Fun to become a kung fu instructor in Metro City. Arriving in Hongwu Chinatown area of Metro City, Li Fun and Chun-Li begin training. People entering the area watches Li Fun spar with Chun-Li. Chun-Li, with her hands never leaving her backside, avoids all of Li Fun's strikes, leaping over her final flying kick and tapping her in the back of her head with her foot as she crashes into the player. Chun-Li helps the player up, introducing herself to him, paving the way for the player to start kung fu training with Chun-Li as their master. Over the time the player is training with Chun-Li, he learns a great deal about her and eventually learns what they need to and prepare on their journey. As Chun-Li and the player are fighting each other one last time, she spots Yuri trying to sneak up on her. Chun-Li receives a warning from Yuri that things aren't finished simply because M. Bison passed away. Although Chun-Li is inquisitive and wants answers, Yuri challenges Chun-Li to beat her until she gives them. Although Chun-Li prevails in the fight, Yuri manages to get away without giving her any information. Even after M. Bison's death, Chun-Li, the obsessive worker, is determined to expose any evil that may be hiding in plain sight. Chun-Li demonstrates empathy for her longtime foe Yuri during their confrontation, realizing that M. Bison's cruel crimes have also affected her. As a result, they took radically opposite turns. Chun-Li chose the road of honor and justice, whereas Yuri was driven by crime and revenge. Yuri, tired of listening to lectures, fights Chun-Li. Yuri flees, her thoughts still filled with Chun-Li's remarks. Li Fun helps the Avatar with the information he needs on his friend and leaves with the Avatar. Soon after, Chun-Li runs into AKI, but before she can say sorry, AKI warns Chun-Li not to go back to work because if she looks into AKI or any of her superiors' actions, AKI would not think twice to melt Chun-Li's face off. The two battles, with Chun-Li edging her off and AKI leaving. Chun-Li continues to figure out what Shadaloo's involvement is in this conflict. And that is everything I could collect on Chun-Li now that Street Fighter 6 is out. I am extremely excited to be back, and until next time, warriors.